Hi, here's how backtesting most of the time is just gambling with extra steps. Because backtesting is basically testing your strategy, most of the time automated strategy with past data. And what most of the time people get wrong is this. So here we have a timeline. And let's say at this point there was a football game, okay? So we don't know if we're here in the timeline. This is us. Nice little stick man. Maybe you can get a happy face there. Yes. So we don't know what the result of the football game will be in the future because in the future we can't 100% predict it. And then what happens most of the time is that people obviously in backtesting you take historical data. So they're actually at this point in time and they want to test this period. So what do? They contaminate it because they know at this point the result of the football game, as an example, is this, for example, 1-1, a draw. Um, and they are not careful with which data they feed into the strategy, into the algorithm, into the backtesting engine, whatever you're using. And this can be all types of data. For example, if you have multiple time frames, like data from multiple time frames, basically multiple data feeds. This could be that you have a year data feed, and then let's say, this is the separation. Then you have months, so you would have many here, and then you have your primary data feed. Don't have to do that all. Just dot dot dot. And basically, for example, if you start your backtest in this example down here, just here, and then you go on, then what might happen is that you give the engine also this data for years and this data for months, which obviously you don't want, and that way it basically contaminates the results because you're using future data to predict the present, which is obviously cheating. It's basically like reading the end of a book first and then pretending to predict the plot. And this is what is called look-ahead bias. So it's one of the biggest pitfalls that you have to avoid with backtesting. Um, Another thing that you need to avoid is basically it's called survivorship bias. So let's say we have a few companies here. These are the charts. Company A, company B, and then company C, which at this point went bankrupt. So we're here right now. We're in the present, and we want to do backtesting. So what some data providers do by default, or if you're not careful with which parameters you're giving for the data you want, is that it actually filters out these companies, which of course is very bad because if you want to test your strategy, then it should, avoid these kinds of companies that look like they're gonna go bankrupt. Basically, you want your strategy to avoid that. Um, if you're doing automated trading, otherwise you would want to avoid that. If you're backtesting yourself with historical data. And so that's another big pitfall that you want to avoid. It's called survivorship bias. So we had look ahead bias, survivorship bias. I'm just going to keep a score here. So we had look ahead bias, survivorship bias, And then another big thing, especially if you're doing machine learning, is, let's say we have this plot and we have a few points here. So maybe they look like this. And I'm just going to remove this one and this one for my own convenience of drawing this. And okay, well, if you do a linear model, this might come out to this. If you do a quadratic model, this might come out to this, which looks pretty accurate, right? This seems like a model that would generalize well. So that's what you actually would want. However, you can imagine overfitting as tweaking the parameters so much. Actually, I'm going to remove this point because it's also not nice for drawing for me in a second. Overfitting is tweaking the parameters so much that it is predicting 100% or 99% of the past data. But if you apply it to the future, it's going to be really, really bad. It's going to produce such bad results. So overfitting in this example might look like this, right? Just goes through all the data points. So it's a perfect predictor of the past. But I mean, if you apply this to the future, I'm just going to erase this, but keep this in mind. If you apply this to the future, then it might, the future might, because it's from the sample from the same function, let's say, then it might look like this, right? And then you would want it to look like this. However, if you have overfitted, it might then produce complete garbage and predict something like that. So overfitting is the third pitfall that you really want to avoid in backtesting. Overfitting. And the way to avoid these pitfalls is basically to do what is called walk-forward analysis. So with walk-forward analysis, let's say this is a timeline. These are all years. This is 1 year. Then walk-forward analysis is, for example, taking 1 year and optimizing the strategy on that. It's supposed to be like a chart going up. And then you test it on this. So basically, train, test, but then you test on the next year, for example, that comes. So you basically walk forward, because what then happens is that instead of training and testing with these 2 years, you're going to train on this one and then test on the next one. So if this was 2017 and this 2018, you would first train on 2017, and then with that trained model, test on 2018, and then train that new model on 2018, and then test on 2019. Oh, this actually came out to exactly end in 2025. That's funny. It wasn't intentional. So basically, what you need to always keep in mind with backtesting is that you should treat historical data like you're actually in the past with that data. So there's no cheating. The backtesting engine strategy has to see the data as if it were happening in that moment that it gets it. Otherwise, there's no way to test your engine or yourself. You have to treat it as if it's real-time data. You can't look at the current price of something and then try to test yourself on historical data on it. So yeah, thank you. These were the 3 biggest pitfalls with backtesting. Why a large number of backtests are completely useless. And thank you for watching. Subscribe and like if you want to see more content like this. and have a good day.